Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So I discussed with you that in Greenham method, so the assumption is that there is a ponding before the infiltration starts, but that is not true because ponding starts after some time. So therefore, we need to correct Greenham method because we are breaking the assumption. So we have to correct that cumulative infiltration depth, okay, after the ponding has occurred. So we know this equation Fp minus F minus psi delta T log 1 plus F by psi delta T is equal to K T. So first we'll apply this equation up to ponding time. So that is this equation. Okay. So Fp is equal I into Tp. So Fp is known here. So in this equation, so first we use this equation, then we'll use second equation F minus psi delta T log 1 plus F by psi delta T is equal to K T. So here T is equal T minus T naught, okay, that is from the beginning. So subtracting from this minus this, that gives infiltration depth after ponding has occurred, because this is for cumulative infiltration depth up to ponding. So from this after subtracting the first equation from second equation, after simplifying it, we'll get this equation F minus Fp minus psi delta T log psi by delta T plus F divided by psi delta T plus Fp is equal to K into T minus T. So up to ponding time, we can easily compute the cumulative infiltration depth. Okay, that is equal to I into Tp. So Fp is equal I into Tp. But F we do not know. Okay, so we will use this equation to calculate it. So let us do one numerical example. So calculate the cumulative infiltration and the infiltration rate after 1 hour of rainfall of intensity 5 cm per hour on a silty loam soil with effective saturation is 30%. So from previous examples, we already calculated psi delta T, that is for 5.68 centimeter, and hydraulic conductivity saturation is given as 0.65 centimeter per hour, and time of ponding is given, that is 0.17 hour. Then cumulative infiltrative depth up to ponding time is given as Fp is equal to 0.85 centimeters. Rainfall intensity is given as 5 centimeter per hour. So now we have to calculate when T is equal 1 hour. So we already derived this equation F minus Fp. So in this equation everything is known except capital F value. So therefore, we can easily calculate it. That is equal to 0.54. Now in this equation F is unknown, but you see that this is a nonlinear equation. We need to use trial and error method. So using trial and error method, F is calculated as 3.02 centimeters, and corresponding to that, the rate of infiltration after 1 hour, so that is calculated by this formula, that F is equal capital K psi delta T by capital F plus 1. So if we have already calculated 3.02 after 1 hour, so everything is known on the right hand side, then we'll get our infiltration rate after 1 hour. That after incorporating the bonding has started after certain time. Okay, that is initially there is no bonding. So after correcting for this, then we have got cumulative infiltration after 1 hour is equal 3.02 centimeters and the infiltration rate is equal 1.87 centimeter per hour. So you can compare the results with the assumption of bonding and without assumption of bonding initially. So infiltration rate due to no bonding with the initial time, the infiltration rate is less than its potential value. That is, the infiltration rate without bonding at the beginning is less than the infiltration rate with bonding. I mean, when we compute it at certain time, at given time. So next topic is infiltration indices. So it's always easy to use constant infiltration rate for the duration of storm. We know the potential infiltration rate, that is a exponential curve. Okay, it starts with equal to rainfall, then it decreases with the time and it reaches a constant value that is equal to infiltration capacity of that soil. But it is difficult to use this exponential curve because it is function of many parameters such as soil characteristics and land cover, etc. But it is easy to use a constant infiltration rate. So that line is shown here. This is a line which is a constant infiltration rate. So if you look at the area under this constant infiltration rate and area under this curve, it is the same. For our to make our life simple, we are using a constant infiltration rate that is called as phi index. There are two types of indices to represent infiltration. They are phi index and W index. So the phi index, first we'll discuss with phi index. So phi index is average rainfall above which rainfall becomes effective rainfall. That means, so phi index is equal P minus R divided by TE, that is effective rainfall. So this index represents losses that occur in the process of runoff formation, such as interception, retention, evaporation, and infiltration. So phi index is calculated as P minus R by TE, where P is precipitation minus R is equal runoff. Okay, so precipitation minus runoff, that gives effective precipitation. So effective precipitation, or we can also call it as excess precipitation. So divided by that time of that excess precipitation, that gives phi index. So you can see this right side figure. This is rainfall hydrograph, which represents intensity of rainfall. So this is a total rainfall. This hydrograph is the total rainfall. But whereas some part of the rainfall is seeping through the soil, that is infiltration. So this is a line, this part of the rainfall that is going into the soil as infiltration, and above this line, that is the rainfall excess. Okay, that is going as runoff on the land. Let's do one example so that you understand better. The question is, rainfall data is given and the area of watershed is given, then runoff volume is given. So runoff volume is, watershed. So watershed is a catchment. So whatever the rainfall occurs in that catchment or watershed, it goes to a outlet. Okay, there is only one outlet for a given watershed or catchment. So whatever the rainfall occurs in that catchment area, that flows to the outlet. And if you measure the flow rate at the outlet, that gives the runoff due to that rain or that storm. See in this figure, this phytograph is given, okay, of a particular storm. So you see that in 2 hours, the x-axis is 2 hours and y-axis is rainfall. So in 2 hours, 0 to 2 hours, 1.4 inches of rainfall took place. And from 2 to 5 hours, then 2.3 inches of rainfall occurred. So these are discrete rainfalls. Okay, they are not cumulative rainfalls. And from 5 hours to 7 hours, the rainfall amount is equal to 1.1 inch. Similarly, from 7 to 10, it is 0.7 inch, and from 10 to 12 hours, it is 0.3 inch. So this is the total rainfall occurring in that watershed. The watershed area is given as 560 acres, and the runoff volume, that is the discharge measured at the outlet of the watershed, is 228.7 acre feet. So the rainfall, this total cumulative rainfall multiplied with this area, that gives the total runoff volume. That should be more than this 228.7, because the remaining amount is going into the soil. I mean, that is infiltration. So remaining amount is infiltrating into the soil. So now the effective rainfall, that is equal to 228.7 divided by 560. 228.7 is, this is the volume runoff volume measured at the outlet during the storm duration. Then 560 is the area of the catchment. So the effective rainfall is equal 4.9 inch. Now we have to assume a phi index. Okay, let's assume one phi index, that is somewhere here. Then this is the time duration, 2 hours into 1.4 inch minus infiltration, plus 3 hour duration into 2.3 inch rain minus 5 infiltration, plus 2 into 1.1 minus 5 plus 3 into 0.7 minus 5. See these 2, 3, they are durations of that rainfall intensity. So first is like 2 hours, that is 1.4, and 2 to 5, that is 3 hours of 2.3 inch rainfall. then 5 to 7, that is again 2 hours of 1.1 inch rainfall, like that, so on and so forth. So this is the total rainfall minus infiltration. That should be equal to the amount of rainfall captured to surface runoff, that is equal to 4.9 inch. So from this we have calculated pi is equal 0.8 inch. But if pi is equal 0.8 inch, then there is a problem, because there are two rainfall events of that storm. Their rainfall is less than the infiltration. That means there is no surface runoff during these two rainfall events. So therefore we should not consider these two. So again what we have to do, we have to assume again phi value, then we have to consider only those three rains which rainfall is more than 0.8 inch per hour. So 2 into 1.4 minus 5 plus 3 into 2.3 minus 5 plus 2 into 1.1 minus 5 is equal 4.9 inch. From this, phi calculated as 1.0 inch. So now we have to cross verify again this 1.0 inch, which is less than these three rainfall events. So therefore our assumption is correct. So from these calculations, now we can say that during this storm, in this given watershed, the infiltration rate is equal 1.0 inch per hour. So instead of using one exponential curve, we are simplifying it with a straight line and a uniform infiltration throughout the storm duration. But phi index got certain limitations, because in phi index the initial losses such as interception and as well as retention storage or detention storage, both are accounted in this phi index. But our aim is to represent only infiltration. So therefore another index is proposed, that is called as W index. So this W index, which is more accurate, because while computing W index, we have used also initial losses. So W index is equal P minus R minus IS by TE, where is P is the total precipitation, R is the runoff, minus this is the initial losses. So initial losses are interception and detention storage. So you know what is interception, because some water is taken by this vegetation leaves, plant leaves. I mean the water is stored on the leaves. That will not come to the ground. And whenever there is a sun, this water stored on the leaves, that gets evaporated. Another loss is detention storage. Detention storage is the surface anywhere, I mean any catchment or watershed, surface is undulating. Surface is undulating. So initially some water that stored in the ditches, okay, so to become a level ground, so that water will not come to the outlet. So now the W index is called P minus R minus IS by TE, and W index is more accurate because it truly represents infiltration, whereas phi index, it represents infiltration and as well as initial losses. So this is all about subsurface flow. So next I'm going to start surface runoff. So if you have any doubts in subsurface flow, please ask me now. So do you have any doubts? Okay, so no doubt. So I'm going to start surface flow. And one more thing. So we have completed subsurface flow. So I'll give you one assignment by today or tomorrow from subsurface flow. So in surface runoff calculations, very important plot is hydrograph. So hydrograph is plot between discharge and time at discharge measured versus time at outlet of a watershed. So I'll come back to the hydrograph figure. Before that, because hydrograph that represents only runoff and whatever the water contributing to the runoff. So we'll discuss what are the components of runoff. So these are components. Okay. So there is a effective precipitation. There is a precipitation, and some water it falls on the channel. Okay, that is the stream, and some amount of water that is falling on watershed that flows as a overland flow, and part of the water that infiltrates into the ground. That infiltrated water, it is two types. One is subsurface flow. That means it is a lateral flow through shallow depth and it reaches to a stream or river somewhere nearby. That is called as interflow. Then part of infiltrated water that percolates deep and reaches groundwater. So this groundwater, again, if suppose nearby a river or stream, if it is deep enough, then the water table intersects with the stream and the groundwater added to the stream. So that is called, that means this groundwater again joining subsurface flow. So this interflow, again it moves laterally and it joins subsurface flow, then it joins stream flow. Groundwater, so part of the groundwater that reaches to the base flow, that reaches part of the groundwater that reaches a stream or river after a certain time. Okay, that is you can say delayed interflow. So I will show a figure of a hydrograph. See, this is a hydrograph figure. So it's a plot between discharge and time. So the discharge measured at an outlet of watershed. So you see that this is the rainfall. So due to this rainfall, initially there is some discharge that is due to the base flow. Base flow means when the rainfall is taking place, water infiltrates into the groundwater, and this groundwater, since depending upon the water table, it may intersect a nearby intersect a river or stream. So the water from the groundwater that is added to the stream. So that is called as base flow. So see here, even before the rainfall, there is a flow in the stream, and that is due to the base flow. So once rainfall starts, the flow in the stream increases. It reaches a peak value. When it reaches a peak value, because watershed is a big area, it can be it can vary between thousands of square kilometers to few acres. So depending upon the that storm size, from all the corners, if the rainwater joins the outlet, the peak flow occurs. So once the peak flow occurs, if the still the rainfall is continuing, then that peak flow will be constant for some time unless that rainfall either decreases or stops. After that, the flow in the stream decreases because rainfall is stopped or rainfall decreased. Again, it reaches a pre-rainfall level, that is due to the base flow. So this is a hydrograph definition. So you see in this figure, overland flow plus channel precipitation, then interflow, then groundwater flow, all are joining here. That becomes total runoff. So these are the important definitions. Overland flow or surface runoff, which is defined as excess rainfall moves over the land surface to reach small channels. So here we can say that excess rainfall moves over the land surface to reach the outlet. Second important definition is interflow. So interflow is rainfall that infiltrates the soil, moves horizontally through the upper layers, and returns to the surface at some location. So that is called interflow. So the difference between interflow and base flow is, interflow is in a short duration, that may be few hours or few days, the infiltrated water into the shallow depth that returns to the surface. Whereas in base flow, because it joins groundwater, so even to reach groundwater it will take some time, and this groundwater, because groundwater is quite deep, of course it varies. In some areas it will be like 2-3 meters below the ground surface. Some areas it may be like 100 meters. So depending upon the depth and as well as the a stream or the spring or whatever that is outlet to come to the outlet for the flow to come out of this groundwater. So depending upon the distance between that outlet and where the rainfall is taking place. So the base flow is takes quite a lot of time to join. I mean to return to the surface. It may take years. So groundwater flow, that is nothing but base flow. So infiltrated water reaching the saturated zone and moves through the soil as a groundwater flow. It is also called as base flow. So this base flow, it is a called delayed interflow because this groundwater emerges to the surface after a very long time. Stream flow generation, because how the stream flow is generated? Stream flow is generated, of course, it is due to the rainfall and as well as base flow. But three mechanisms stream flow is generated. Those three mechanisms are Hartonian overland flow, subsurface flow, and saturation overland flow. So let's discuss these three different mechanisms. So Hartonian flow. So Hartonian flow is a sheet flow over an impervious surface. So this is defined by Horton in 1930s. Look at this figure. There is a rainfall with intensity I. Then there is a infiltration F. So when I less than F, that is rainfall intensity less than the infiltration capacity of soil, then all water of that rain, it is absorbed by the soil. In other case, where the rainfall intensity is more than infiltration capacity of infiltration or potential infiltration of that soil, then the I minus F, that is the remaining water after infiltration, that joins the stream. So see here the rainfall I, there is the infiltration F. So when I greater than F, then only there is a overland flow, and I minus F, that is the rainfall excess, that is going into a stream. So this Hartonian flow, that is applicable to impervious surfaces. Impervious surfaces are like urban areas, paved roads and paved grounds like basketball courts or tennis courts or etc. Roads and the buildings, they are all impervious surfaces. So whatever the rain falling on impervious surfaces, that is directly goes to the stream. And steep slopes with thin soil. Okay, so thin soil is, there is an impervious layer below this soil layer, and the soil layer is very thin. So whatever the rain falls, it cannot infiltrate, or only little bit infiltrates into the thin soil and remaining joins a stream. And another place where it is a compacted soil. Okay, so compacted soil where the voids are closed. Okay, so therefore water cannot infiltrate. So whatever the rain falls on compacted soil, that is also joined in stream. So this is called as overland flow. Overland flow is nothing but surface, rainfall minus infiltration. And overland flow occurs only when rainfall intensity is greater than infiltration rate. So next is subsurface flow. So subsurface flow is the water flows in unsaturated medium in lateral direction and comes back to the surface. So subsurface flow, that is mainly the lateral movement of water above the water table. So for subsurface flow, the infiltration capacity must be more than rainfall intensity. So all the water goes to the soil, and part of that infiltrated water that moves laterally and joins a stream at somewhere nearby uh, without much delay. So this subsurface flow is two types: translatory flow and micro pore flow. So when the translatory flow takes place, so already there is a antecedent moisture in the soil. So when the precipitation occurs, due to this downward infiltration that displaces earlier soil moisture, so that moves in lateral direction and joins a stream. And some conditions, because hydraulic conductivity are, it is not isotropic. Okay, so hydraulic conductivity in vertical direction is different than hydraulic conductivity in lateral direction. So sometimes to some impervious layers below the soil surface, hydraulic conductivity in lateral direction may be more than hydraulic conductivity in vertical direction. So in that condition, water moves laterally, infiltrated water moves laterally and returns to surface. Third condition is if porosity and permeability of the soil are higher near the zones near the surface, because if you look at soil vertical profile, there are different layers. Okay, it is possible that sandy soil, sand near the ground, and below that there is a clay layer formation. So in that case, whatever the water infiltrating through the sand, that cannot penetrate clay, or it penetrates, it penetrates in less quantities. So the remaining that moves parallel to the ground and comes back to the surface. So in macro pore flow, movement of water takes large conduits formed in the soil. Okay, so sometimes due to the rainy seasons, there can be piping within the soil. Piping means there is a formation of large voids, or formation of interconnected large voids. Those are called as conduit within the ground, because they form due to the type of soil and then higher uh, rainfall. So water flows through those conduits, so the velocity will be higher because of their larger voids or larger pores, and they're interconnected very well, kind of forming a pipe. So velocity is quite high, so it joins, it returns back to the surface quickly. So subsurface flow, it is a, we can call it as. And next is uh, saturation overland flow. So in saturated overland flow, the soil is saturated below the ground. So any precipitation occurs over the saturated surface, it becomes overland flow. So what this means, because already rainfall might have occurred before that, so that the soil is saturated. Okay, when soil saturated, infiltration capacity will be ultimate. That means it is a small value. If you look at potential infiltration curve, infiltration decreases and it attains a constant infiltration when the soil saturates. So that time the infiltration capacity will be small. So whatever the rainfall is taking place, most of the rainfall it flows on land. That is called saturation overland flow. So then, so this is a kind of figure. Okay, this is a land, and everywhere in a given watershed there are many streams. Okay, and these streams they are joining bigger streams, and finally one big stream or river that catches all the water falling in that catchment and flows out of the catchment. So the exit point of the watershed, that is we can call it as the outlet to that watershed. Okay, so this is a kind of a small stream, and there are so many streams joining bigger streams and bigger joining even bigger ones. Finally, streams joining the largest stream, and that takes all the water in falling in that watershed to the out of the watershed. So these streams, the streams can be depending upon the flow throughout the year. Streams can be classified as perennial streams, intermittent streams, and ephemeral streams. So perennial stream is the stream always has a flow. Suppose Brahmaputra river or Mississippi river or river Ganges, they are all perennial streams because the water is there throughout the year. And second kind of stream type is intermittent streams. So in intermittent streams, flow takes place only during a season, or we can say that only seasonal flow can occur in intermittent streams. That means, suppose if you see many streams in India, they flow only during rainy season. After the once rainy season is over, the stream will be dry. So suppose rainy season is 4 months, so we can find the water in the intermittent streams in those 4 months, and in summer and winter we cannot see water in that stream. So there is a kind of streams are called intermittent streams. Third is ephemeral streams. So ephemeral stream is even its ephemeral streams, they flow only during a rainfall. So suppose today there is a rain, we can see water in this ephemeral stream, and after the rainfall is over, after a couple of hours, there is no flow. The difference between this intermittent stream and ephemeral stream is ephemeral stream is resulting from only one rainfall, and after that rainfall there is no more water in the ephemeral stream. But whereas intermittent stream, this stream carries water throughout a rainfall season. So even because the base flow joins intermittent streams during the rainy season, because rainy season water table rises, so therefore the groundwater contributes to intermittent streams. So during the rainfall, even one day, some day there is no rain, the water is flowing in intermittent streams because it is contributed by a base flow or groundwater flow. But in perennial streams, base flow is contributed throughout the year, whereas intermittent streams base flow is contributed only during rainy season, and there is no base flow in ephemeral streams. These are the stream flow hydrographs of different streams. So you can see that the rightmost corner, this is the hydrograph of perennial stream. So you see that from January to December, the flow is there, and during some time there is a peaks because of the rainfall. But you can see that even January, February, when there is no rain, still there is a sufficient quantity of water in this perennial river. That is contributed by a base flow. And the next, see this rightmost, left corner. This is a intermittent stream. So even intermittent stream, okay, this is not a intermittent stream because the flow is taking place throughout the year. Okay, but the flow is more during summer because of the melting of. You see in this river, there is a peak flow in summer that is due to the snow melting. But remaining time again there is a base flow is there. This is also a perennial river. See this figure which is leftmost at the left corner. This is a ephemeral river. So you can see that there is no flow during January to March. So in March there is a storm, then there is a flow in that. Then after that in April and June there is a rainfall. So there is a flow. So we have already discussed phi index. Okay. So how we can calculate phi index? So depth of direct rainfall, that is equal to summation of observed rainfall minus phi delta t over the storm duration. So there are, this rainfall, it can be classified as effective rainfall and excess rainfall, because the difference between effective rainfall and excess rainfall is very small. So excess rainfall is calculated as total rainfall minus initial and infiltration losses. Okay. So excess rainfall is calculated from the rainfall data, whereas effective rainfall, it is calculated from the runoff measurements. So we measure the flow rate at the outlet. So over the storm duration, we know what is the volume of water escaped from that outlet. Then we know the area of the catchment. So this direct runoff volume divided by area of catchment, that gives effective rainfall. So effective rainfall is more than excess rainfall, because in excess rainfall we have already subtracted infiltration losses from the total rainfall, but this infiltrated water, it may again come back to the surface depending upon the type of soil below and type of antecedent moisture and soil strata, depends on soil strata. So but in effective rainfall, because we are this direct runoff, so direct runoff is rainfall minus initial losses and infiltration losses. At the same time, because sometimes this infiltrated water, it may join the stream or join the watershed, I mean surface of the watershed before the outlet. So here the interflow is also considered. So effective rainfall is more accurate than excess rainfall. But anyway, because the difference between excess rainfall and effective rainfall will be very small. So in many cases, they are interchanged. The usage is interchanged. Okay. So there are methods to predict the runoff or to calculate the runoff from the rainfall intensity. So for that, the most important method is rational approach or rational method. So using rational method, by knowing the intensity of rainfall and by knowing the watershed, by knowing the uh, land cover in the watershed, we can estimate the runoff using this rational approach or rational method. So the rational method, the formula is peak flow, that is called CIA. This is only for this 360 is for unit conversion. Okay, we can simply write for SI units. We can write QP, that is meter cube per second, is equal constant, and then rainfall intensity, that is we can express meter per second. Of course, rainfall intensity is always measured either inches per hour or centimeter hour per hour, but we can change its unit by meter per hour. Then area is in terms of meter square. Okay, so meter per second and meter square. This totally meter cube per second. That is so a constant which doesn't have any units. Because this infiltration, if you take km per hour, then area is meter square, then cube is meter cube per second. So for that conversion, we need to use this 360 factor. So this is rational formula which is used to estimate runoff of a watershed. And here everything is, I mean, on the right side, I, that is intensity of rainfall, and area of the watershed, both are known, but we don't know the C value. But by using experiments, C value given for different kinds of land cover, and so you can see here, depending on the soil texture and the topography and vegetation, the C value is given. The maximum C value is 0.80, where the soil is type is clay, because in clay infiltration is very small, so all the water falling in that watershed, that goes to the stream, or that is outflow, I mean runoff. So whatever the rain is falling, a maximum percentage returns as a runoff because of the very less infiltration in clay soil. So you can see that if suppose it is completely wooded, okay, it is like a forest, then the C value is very small, that is only 0.1. We can see that for agricultural fields, up to, for clay it is 0.6, and for kind of a silty sand, then the C value is 0.3. So depending upon the topography, vegetation and soil texture, we can get C value from this. And then we can estimate the runoff in a given catchment for a given rainfall intensity.